Hey everyone, welcome back to the Recovery Rebellion podcast. I'm your host, Tara Grace. I go by Burn the Stigma on social media, and this is the space where we speak truth about recovery, harm reduction, and the system that is killing us. So this is supposed to be another nightcap episode, which honestly, I don't think I'm going to call them nightcap episodes anymore, because if I end up uploading them like earlier today, I uploaded an episode I did the other night, and it's like, it doesn't make sense. So moving forward, I am just going to for the Recovery Rebellion podcast just is what it is, and we're going to be talking about a lot of current events and news, and that's just part of who we are. And a lot of what I was going to do on the nightcap, we're just going to do in the podcast, and then hopefully someday I will be able to make content full time and I can have a nightly show that I record and upload in the same night. But right now, that's just not gonna work for my schedule. So we will just stick with the Recovery Rebellion, okay? But anyways, I want to talk about something that's pretty serious and it's pretty upsetting. Hold on, let me take a sip of water because I need one. Okay, so I want to talk about what happened in Philadelphia, specifically the Kensington area. Philadelphia City Council passed a bill that bans mobile harm reduction and outreach vans from most of Kensington and the 7th district. So let me break down what that actually means. Mobile medical units can now only operate in 2 small areas during restricted hours. So providers are now restricted to just 2 small zones with time limits and permit requirements. If you are an outreach van bringing the lock zone, food, clean supplies, you can only stay 45 minutes before you have to move, 1,000 feet away. If you don't, you get fined. You get 3 fines, you lose your permit, and you can't come back. And they're doing it under the guise of cleaning up the neighborhood. But what they're actually just trying to do is eliminate people from the public view. Okay? This is the part that really guts me, is that they brought they weren't middle schoolers, they weren't high schoolers, they brought elementary kids into the council meeting, okay, to talk about how bad it is in their neighborhood. Kids, little kids, okay, describing what it's like to walk past people using in public, what it's like to see overdose on their way to school, and that is so heartbreaking. No child should have to, that shouldn't be part of their normal life. It shouldn't be something they have to normalize, okay? No family should have to explain to a 6-year-old what's going on. I'm sure you've seen pictures of Kensington, but instead of using their stories to push for real solutions like overdose prevention centers, they're using it to push people out, to force drug use further underground, and to try to make it invisible. If you can just get them out of the way, we can just pretend it's not happening. And listen, I work in Boston in an area where it's in the Mass and Cass area, and it's our own Kensington. I go to work, there's needles, there's feces, there's condoms, there's used tampons in our parking lot. It smells like piss many days. My dog loves to run over to the pee spots. You can see where people were peeing in between trucks and such. Like I said, human shit all the time. Happens all the time. And yes, now there's a cleanup crew, but a few years ago there wasn't. I don't know when that number started to where you could just call and have them clean up, and you don't even have to call now. They just come out every day and clean up because it's inevitable that it's going to be there. Before you would call, if you found needles, which you'd be calling pretty much every day. So now you don't even have to call because they just come every single day, So I get it from the business side. I understand the chaos that comes with being in areas like that. I really do, and the kids who live nearby. There's a school a block away from us, right, with a nice playground, and again, they have people who come out and they go all around the park and they clean up the needles so that the kids aren't playing in needles. And even outside of that, there is it looks like a mailbox, but it's a sharps box where people can safely dispose of needles. But again, it's in a school area. I can understand why some parents don't want to have to tell their kids what that is at a young age. So I do see the other side, but what they are doing in Philly is not the answer. You want to protect kids from seeing people using drugs in public? Give people a safe place to use. We need overdose prevention centers, places where people can chill and be supervised and be safe and get connected to resources without being punished. We need a regulated, safe supply so that people aren't dying from not knowing what the hell is in their drugs. We need housing that doesn't make sobriety a requirement for shelter. We need systems that make space for real humanity and not just try to clean up the sidewalks. You know, I haven't seen where they've outlawed mobile outreach in Boston, but I have seen where they have pushed the population further back. In Boston, the tents were like out right when you got off the highway on Mass Ave, right? They've pushed people further back. They're not letting them set up their tents there, but they're right around the corner. It's just that they're less visible. And I feel like in Philly, again, they just want it to be less visible, but they're taking bigger actions that are going to kill people. What Philly passed it's not a step forward. It's a desperate and super misinformed step backwards. This is not going to help anybody. This isn't about outreach vans, okay? This is about a city like so many other cities, again, like I was just talking about Boston, that are trying to erase visible signs of a crisis that they refuse to solve, right? Because the real answers, like the safe supply, like the overdose prevention centers, that's too much for people, because people still look at using drugs as a moral issue and not as a public health issue, right? That's why we have to have these conversations and talk about things. I hate to always use alcohol as an example, but no, it's not perfect. You know, like, yes, there are still people who suffer from alcohol use disorder. Yes, there are people who still die from alcohol-related deaths. Yes, there are still bad things that happen when people are under the influence of alcohol. However, at any point in time, somebody knows exactly what they are drinking when they go to the store and purchase alcohol. When they go to the liquor store, they know what they're getting. You know, every single time that they go and get that six-pack is what it is. It's not unpredictable. But when people use illicit drugs out on the street, one week it could be super strong and the next week it could be super weak. And knowing what you're getting is so important to using safely and to not dying. In my opinion, before we can even have the conversations about safe supply and overdose prevention centers, there's a lot of stigma and misinformation that has to get corrected before more people will be on board with it, right? Overdose prevention centers, I think, could be a little bit easier to get some people to understand. However, there's still going to be plenty of people who don't agree with them, right? And who do just see them, oh, like, you're just going to let the junkies get high and just hang around and get high? Like, why are you giving them a safe place to use drugs? Even in the recovery world, I know a lot of people would be like, you know, that's just enabling. Why would we spend money to help people destroy themselves? You know, that's a common thing you hear. And I get it. If you have grown up being taught that people who use drugs are selfish, they're manipulative, they're broken, they're evil, those solutions do sound outrageous, right? They do probably sound dangerous to some people, but the real danger is clinging to that stigma over actual facts and data, okay? Because the answer to this is not taking away harm reduction services, it's increasing them, right? We need overdose prevention centers, not fewer outreach vans and fewer hours that they can be accessed. You know, we need support without strings attached, and we need it now. It's like we're going backwards. Most people, like, they don't support these things because they've been lied to their whole lives. Everything that they think they know is misinformation. They've been lied to by the media. They've been lied to by DARE. They've been lied to by the recovery culture that tells them that drug use is bad and that abstinence is the way out. Drug use is, you know, for people who are hurting and all this stuff, right? Before people can get on board with evidence-based solutions, they have to unlearn the propaganda that they were raised on. They have to learn that drug user doesn't mean bad person. They have to learn that returning to use, that using drugs doesn't mean that you failed. They have to learn that harm reduction isn't coddling people or enabling them. It's survival. It's just human. One of the things that I have learned from speaking on social media and having conversations that people aren't used to hearing is that it's very easy to be like, oh, like safe supply, overdose prevention centers. But before we can actually get the people who are so against them to even like open their eyes a teeny tiny bit, we need people to learn the truth about drugs, about drug use, right? We need people to stop thinking that recovery is only 100% abstinence and it has to look this way. And we definitely need people to stop seeing drug users as disposable, because we can't build real solutions on a foundation of misinformation and lies, because people don't give a shit. People don't give a shit when they think that drug users are bad people. And you know what they're doing in Philly? It's about them trying to hide the problem. The real solution isn't more surveillance and less outreach. It's more support. It's not more rules. It's more resources. And it's definitely not criminalizing people for surviving the only way that they're able to right now. Right? The kids in Kensington, they absolutely deserve better, but so do the people who are using drugs. I do think it was kind of fucked up that they used elementary school kids at that council meeting, but let me be 100% clear. I don't think that the kids should have to suck it up. They deserve better. They deserve safe streets. They deserve clean parks in a community that feels safe to them. But the people that you should be upset with are not the ones that are using drugs. The outrage is valid and it's real, but it's being weaponized and it's being aimed in the wrong direction. Don't blame the people that you see slumped over on the sidewalks. Blame the decades of failed policies. Blame the lawmakers who prioritized punishment over public health. People have been using drugs long before America existed, okay? Hell, traces of opium have been found in ancient Mesopotamia from 3,400 BC. Drugs weren't always criminalized. They weren't always so deadly. The chaos that we see today is a product of failed drug policies. It's not the people using the drugs. If making drugs illegal was really about safety, alcohol would be banned too. People die from alcohol every year. Bad things happen when people drink all the time. But because it's legal, we treat it much differently. Right? And people are able to walk into a store and know exactly what they're getting. So let's stop pretending that this is about safety, okay? Because it's not. It's fucking not. If you want to protect the kids in Kensington or anywhere else, stop pointing the fingers at the people who are clearly struggling, right? Point them at the people who let it get this bad. Point it at the laws that made it worse. And let's fucking start demanding something real. If you actually want to protect the kids, you don't do it by sweeping people away, pushing them away, taking away services, locking them up, like how they've made it, how we were just talking about the other night, how they've made it easier to commit people in New York. That's not the answer. You do it by changing the policies that put us here in the first place. But anyways, yeah, I think we'll wrap this one up. You know, it's so frustrating because there's just so much. There's just so much. And I really, like, there's just so much going on in the world of recovery and harm reduction and in that area. Like, I can't even look past that. Like, I know there's a whole other shit going on too, but I gotta stay right here because this is already too much for me to handle. But it's something that's very near and dear to me, and I will be speaking about it because we need to talk about it, because again, too many people believe things that are factually untrue, And so it allows for people to just not give a shit because of the stigma and how they view people who use drugs. And it's just, we have to start there before we can even get people to even think for 1 second about an overdose prevention center, and certainly safe supply. All right, guys. Well, until next time, stay grounded, find your peace, do what fucking works for you, and fuck what anybody else has to say.